like to call to order the regular CRA meeting for April 27, 2022, 6:31 p.m. Madam Roll Call.
Commissioner McCoy?
Can't hear you. Speak up a little bit.
Sorry?
I was saying I couldn't hear you. If you could speak up a little bit.
Commissioner McCoy?
Here.
Commissioner Batal?
Here.
Commissioner Lawson?
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier is absent. Chair Miller Anderson?
Present.
Also in attendance, Mayor Felder?
Here.
CRA Executive Director Jonathan Evans?
Present.
Attorney Chris Smith?
Here.
Director of Neighborhood Services Anita Jenkins is here. Director of Planning and Development is Scott Evans is here. And CRA Clerk Mealy De Jesus is here. And Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Here. All right. We'll have the moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Lawson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'm sorry, do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions? Any disclosures by commission and staff? Have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Do we have a second? Second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Batal?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we have a consent agenda. Do we have anyone that would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? All right,
Move to approve consent.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Batal?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mealy, just make sure, let me know whether or not you have any public comment cards for any of these items before we move on. We didn't have any
There-
for consent, I assume.
There are no public comment cards for the consent agenda, and the acceptance of public comment is now closed.
Okay, and then item number 4, unfinished business, we don't have anything. 5, presentations, 5A.
Utility burial project. We do have one public comment for this item, and the acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
All right, thank you. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Scott Evans, to make this presentation.
All right, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Mayor. This item is a presentation to provide the board with an update on our utility burial project. And in working towards that project, we've hired Chenmore and Associates, and they're an engineering firm who's been helping to coordinate the burial of the overhead lines, which are located on Broadway between 11th Street and 27th Street, and that's the boundaries of the current project. And it's been underway. We've made some progress, and in advance of some of the actions that will be coming up this summer and in the fall, we want to present the board with an update on the project so you can understand what we've accomplished and to provide an outline of what's coming next.
All right.
And this is Suzanne Dombrowski from Chenmore.
All right, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. As Scott said, my name is Suzanne Dombrowski, and I'm a principal engineer with Chenmore and Associates, and I'm here to provide you with an update on the utility burial project for Broadway. So the purpose of the project is to remove the overhead facilities and install them underground within the U.S. corridor from 12th Street to Blue Heron Boulevard. And part of this is for hurricane hardening, more reliable service, as well as the beautification. So the project is divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 is complete and included the undergrounding of level 3, fiber lights, and fiber net, which are all communications providers along the west side of US 1. And phase 2 is ongoing. Phase 2 includes FPL, AT&T, and Comcast. So Comcast is complete, and we are currently working through the process with FPL and AT&T. And as it pertains to phasing of those 2 utilities, what FPL requires to do their final design is easements for all of their equipment, and what AT&T requires to start their design is for FPL to be finished. So AT&T follows where FPL goes. So that being said, the bulk of the effort on this project has been related to the easement acquisition, and there have been 19 easements identified for the FPL equipment. This chart here, it shows you how many we have owner agreement obtained. So that's 13 different properties that have conceded to providing the easement. There is 1 property that the easement was not approved, so we are working with FPL to try and relocate that equipment to another location. And then there are 4 properties that are pending. We've had ongoing coordination with them, and we believe that those easements will come forth soon. This is just an example of some of the facilities you might see out there after the burial project is complete. You'll see the switch cabinets from FPL, and here you're going to see a standard one. We are working with them for some modified structures as well, for some lower profile ones. There's an AT&T box here, and then the transformers. Each location we'll be looking at individually to make sure that we're screening it from the public view with the landscape beautification if it's appropriate. Again, this is going to be a custom design for each site depending on what we're looking at there. For our schedule, by the end of the summer of this year, we should have agreement from all of the property owners on the easements. This is a non-binding agreement, just agreeing to pretty much the location of it. By fall, we should have all of the binding legal agreements in place with those property owners and complete the FPL final design. At that point, we're also going to be establishing the contract between the CRA and FPL to proceed with the design, and then we will begin the FDOT permitting process. By winter of this year, we will be coordinating with AT&T to finalize their design as well. And then by spring of 2023, we should initiate construction for the installation of all the conduits and removal of the overhead power lines. That's projected to have construction complete in summer of 2024. This is an overview of the budget. The phase 1 is complete. That came in at $811,776. The FPL design deposit has already been provided to them, and this would be credited towards any of the future construction. The FPL construction cost is really a ballpark figure at this time. They will not provide a binding estimate until their design is finalized. So right now it's this ballpark estimate at $2.4 million. Same with AT&T. We've estimated $200,000 at this point, but that's going to be pending their final design. Comcast is complete at $305,000, and then we've got some engineering fees in here at $107,000. The private connections are estimated to be about $264,000, and that's making sure that each property is connected to those new facilities that are installed in the easements. There will be some road, sidewalk, landscape type restoration in the right-of-way, and that's estimated to be approximately $200,000 as well. We've got some line items for other miscellaneous costs for a total projected cost of phase 2 at $3.6 million. And that was it for the update. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair.
We'll go to public comment, and then we'll come back for the board.
Okay, we have one public comment by Bonnie Larson.
All right.
Jeez. Bonnie Larson. For a little history on this Treasure
Hold on
Coast.
1 second, Ms. Larson. Do you all have the clock, the timer up? We can't see it.
Oh, it's going? Oh,
Huh? All right, start it over for her, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
for a little history, Treasure Coast promised us underground utilities in 2007. That is 15 years ago. What happened, just so you all know, maybe you don't, at that time, our current at the time, CRA Director Tony Brown hired our Florida Power and Light representative as soon as he retired. He retired, and then Riviera Beach hired him like the next day to do a study, and they were dividing it into two areas. One was from Blue Heron. The first was Blue Heron down to the intersection of West Palm Beach. That was to be phase one. Okay. Then that didn't happen. So then we paid that gentleman again to do another study from Blue Heron north up to Lake Park. So we paid twice for studies for this. Nothing has happened yet, just so you know. Now this says phase one complete, including undergrounding of level 3 fiber light equipment. I don't know what that is, so maybe you could explain that to me. On the sheet, there are only about 5 companies that are listed here as saying okay, and it's a non-binding agreement. So what good is that? What about all the other companies? And the young lady who was just here, she mentioned that it was from Blue Heron to 12th Street. What happened from, and it's listed in here also, only at 12th Street. What happened from Blue Heron all the way to the intersection of West Palm Beach? Why are we shortening it? Also, if you could tell me, how is this going to be done? Because I've mentioned this before, a lot of those businesses along US 1, their doors open onto the sidewalk. So there is no easement really in the front of their businesses. How is this going to happen? Where are these utility boxes going to go? Are they going to tear up the sidewalks? Where is the easement that they're talking about? Because there is no easement in the front of a lot of those properties. And if they tear up the sidewalks, how are those businesses going to continue with a mess in front? Or I saw them doing something from Blue Heron north. It wasn't these people. But anyhow, they dug down, they put a cable, and they ran it up a couple blocks, and then it popped up again. Okay, so that was kind of non-invasive. But how is this going to happen when they're saying they're going to do it in the easement? Because there is no easement in the front of these properties. And why do we have non-binding? A lot of questions here. Viking in one instance says, no, I'm not going to do it. He said no before, Viking. So if you can explain those questions to me, that would be good. Because like I said, this is a 15-year in the process event, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm curious as to these things. Now we're put off to 2024, another 2 years. I don't think this is going to happen. But if you can explain to me those questions I just asked, maybe I can understand it better, and that would be good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Botel?
Oh, thank you. When I think about places in the city that are at most risk in hurricanes, guess what I think about? And I'm just wondering if there's any potential for getting federal money to underground the services on Singer Island. So if we can look into that, I'd appreciate it.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
With respect to obtaining federal monies for resiliency or hardening a facility, those undergrounding of utilities does provide for additional redundancies and more reliability, but they are routinely seen as cosmetic improvements. But we can certainly do the research citywide to see, what's the cost for capital projects as such, and report back to the board accordingly.
Thank you.
All right. And do you have any answers to the questions that Ms. Larson was asking?
Madam Chair, I can defer to the Planning and Development Director, Mr. Scott Evans, to provide some context on those questions.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think there was a few questions, but I'll try to cover some of them. The schedule, this project was originally conceived back in 2007. At that time, we were trying to get the project incorporated before the roadway, Broadway, was redone. And we couldn't do that, so some of the work that we ended up having to do had to wait. So there was a reset period while we changed our approach to the project. The non-binding status is simply where those easements are now. And then once we have all of those easements, they will become binding. And several of these easements are on CRA property, and those ones are also non-binding until we bring them to this board. But that action will occur as part of the process as we move forward. And so once we finalize those easements, a lot of the design is contingent on the exact location of where those easements are. And per the question, some of the properties don't have spaces for the easements. So what we've done is looked up and down the corridor for properties that do have the available space for the easements. You don't need to have an easement at every property, just at certain places along the way. And then Chenmore coordinates with FPL when we have to move those easements around. And so they're non-binding at this point because until we finalize all of the easements, we don't know if we have to redesign the plan that FPL is going to do until we know that we have all of the easements. For example, one of the easements that was shown that the owner is not interested, we're currently now looking for a new location. And part of that is we've come up with a new location, but then we have to coordinate with FPL to make sure that that works and is feasible for their plan. So all of those easements would become binding once we get the final design finalized. And was there any other questions that?
As far as the disruptions to the sidewalks and the construction impacts, all of this work that's in the public right-of-way where that sidewalk is regulated by Florida Department of Transportation. So we will be required to get a permit through them, and they are very specific about those requirements as far as putting that back in a certain time frame and the materials of construction.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Evans, thank you. We've been working on this since we got here, so we're excited to get some progress and movement. I see that we budgeted originally $3.4 million for a utility burial project, but looking at this proposal, we're at 3.67. I'm assuming with construction costs going up and with cost of materials, that's where these dollars are going, and the raise in the pricing. Where are we going to be getting these dollars from to cover that additional $200,000 currently?
Yes, we're going to propose to add more dollars in the next 2 budget years as the project's completed. We have enough funding right now so that the board can complete a contract with FPL, which is the most significant cost factor. But in this upcoming budget, we will propose to the board the additional capital dollars that are needed to complete the project through 2024.
And I really want, with the cost of materials and goods going up, services going up, I want us to really focus on getting this done as quickly as possible because it's not going down anytime soon. So that's the first thing. The second thing is also looking at the imagery for the actual boxes. Our corridor is going to be our downtown corridor that we're looking to build as kind of a downtown area. So even beautification of maybe some arts or murals or some decorative boxes or switches, that would be as opposed to just those standard boxes they have. If you just do a simple Google search of decorative boxes, decorative transformer boxes, they have different opportunities of artwork, mural, and things that we could put for marketing purposes for the city just to kind of showcase that Broadway corridor. So just to make it look better than just these standard boxes. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that presentation. All right, we don't have anything for discussion. Item number 7, regular agenda, 7A.
Resolution number 2022-07, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, the agency, authorizing the execution of the demolition agreement with Alpha Wrecking Group at an amount not to exceed $58,641, authorizing the chair and executive director to take such actions as shall be necessary and consistent to carry out the intent and desire of the agency, providing an effective date. And we do have one public comment card for this item. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
Motion to approve resolution number 2022-07.
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I could have the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Scott Evans, make this presentation.
All right, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair.
Good.
And members of the CRA board, this item is to demolish the former Miami Subs building. This was acquired by the CRA for purposes of redevelopment. And the city's procurement department acquired 3 bids for the project. And this was the lowest, most responsible bidder. We did get 3 bids, but 1 bid didn't include everything that we were looking for. Following the demolition, this contract includes providing sod on the site to get it ready for redevelopment. And the site, the Miami sub-site is of course adjacent to the City of Riviera Beach owned site, which is on Avenue E. And we see that the future redevelopment of this site could incorporate potentially both of those properties so that a project would not only change how Avenue E looks, but also Broadway. And so the demolition will help prepare the site for redevelopment. And we were also hoping to bring back to the board very soon a proposal to put out an RFP, RFQ for this site so that we can identify and confirm what we'd like to put there. The site is right directly across the street from Light Harbor Park, and it has excellent uninterrupted views of the Intercoastal. So we think that it would be an ideal spot to have future residential. And in accordance with trying to maintain vibrancy and bring new projects to Broadway that increase pedestrian traffic, we would also like to incorporate the bottom floor of that to be ground floor retail or neighborhood commercial. So following the demolition, the sod will be installed, and then we would look to bring back this opportunity at a future meeting to make this site available for the development community. And the cost of the demolition is $53,310, and with a 10% contingency, this contract is proposed not to exceed $58,641. And I spoke with the contractor earlier today and confirmed the need for this project to move forward very quickly. And so they would immediately start permitting following if this contract is approved this evening. And they anticipate having the project completed by early June. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. We'll go to public comment, and we'll come back to the board.
We have one public comment by Bonnie Larson.
Bonnie Larson, I may have heard wrong. Did you just say that they'll be ready by June of this year? You can answer that at the end, I guess. This is a new contract. It'd be nice if the name of the project were in the in here, right here in the main part of it. You have to like look and then see that it's Miami Subs. The other thing, just one minor thing, was paperwork for this project is supposed to go to various people. Mr. Jonathan Evans, being our CRA director, he's supposed to get information, but the address they have is 2001 Broadway, which is the former site of the CRA. I thought we were out of there. Once we moved the CRA out of there, I thought we didn't have any more rental there, but that's where they're supposed to send the documentation, so that if we're still renting there, that might be true. If not, that address needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board, comments? All right, Mr. Evans, Scott Evans, did you have an answer for her question or something she was asking about?
Yes, we will correct the address.
Well, no, she had something else, I think, at the beginning. Was that last time?
It was hard to hear the speaker. I think that was the nature of the question as to the address. And I believe that when the solicitation process occurred as a result of this particular parcel, that the CRA offices were currently at that location. But we did have another vendor that submitted, and so then we went to this subsequent vendor. So I think we'll correct the address on the paperwork. But
Okay, thank you. No questions from the board? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Patel?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 7B.
Item 7B is Resolution 2022-08, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, the agency, authorizing the execution of the exclusive negotiation and development agreement with APDS Tesrol RBMV2 LLC hereinafter called Master Developer, providing an effective date. We have 4 public comment cards for this item, and the acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
All right, we have a motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 2022-08.
Second.
All right, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, Madam Chair and members of the board, the item before you this evening is seeking City or CRA Board of Directors execution of the exclusive negotiation agreement between the developers and the CRA. Since the last conversation that we had with the board staff and our partners at JLL, as well as the developers, have done extensive work to modify, tweak, and refine the proposal. And this evening you'll hear a comprehensive presentation from the developers as well as our consultants, and then staff will provide some additional context. The CRA Attorney's Office has worked tirelessly with legal counsel from the development group to structure an agreement, an exclusive negotiation agreement that sets forth some benchmarks and some milestones that will help move the project forward. You'll see, as it relates to the project, there are significant components that this board has expressed as concerns, and those have been resolved. Now, there are still some significant milestones and additional work that has to occur as a result of the process that we're going through, and JLL will kind of set forth the next steps forward. So at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to the Planning and Development Director, Mr. Scott Evans, and then he will facilitate the list of presenters this evening.
All right, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tonight, we're very excited. In December, the board gave staff and the proposed development team very clear direction to move forward aggressively with negotiation towards bringing the best possible series of elements and development project for the Marina Village Phase 2. And towards that, we've made great progress in bringing a project and developing one that would really make an impact on the area. And tonight, we're proposing approval of the exclusive negotiation agreement, which sets out the various milestones and goals which we want to achieve in the next 6 months. And towards that, we wanted to provide the board with an update on our negotiations, a summary of what the exclusive negotiation agreement includes, and a presentation on the project as it's been developed and as it's been transformed, I guess. And so towards that, we've invited the development team to come and present to the CRA board this evening. And that would be followed by a summary by Jones, Lang, and LaSalle. And with us this evening is Tony Brown and Vaughn Irons from the development team, and Nick Finelli and Ed Chapman from Jones, Lang, and LaSalle. And they're, of course, our public-private partnership consultants who's been working diligently with staff to try and bring this project forward in a way that would best benefit the city. So with your approval, Madam Chair, I would like to begin with a presentation from the developers on the status of the project.
Okay, thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Tony Brown. I'm the principal in Tesra.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Vaughn Irons. I'm the principal of APD Solutions Real Estate Group.
Good evening.
Want to get started? Well, first of all, we'd like to thank you for your time, Madam Chair and the other council people, and in particular, Dr. Botel, for your recommendation in October 2018 that these two groups join together, because it has helped us really develop what we believe is a phenomenal and transformative real estate development that we're going to share with you today. I'd also like to thank the individuals on the staff and the board who extended the kindness to me last month when I received my kidney transplant. I'm 5 weeks in with a new kidney, and this is the first opportunity I've had to travel since receiving the new kidney, so thank you. My partner, Tony Brown, will take us through the next steps. And I can't tell you how excited I am to have Vaughn back on the saddle. His team did a good job of pitch hitting for him, and but there is nothing like having his insight and his energy and motivation to the project. I also want to join in the thanks to this board for your patience to Mr. Evans and Jonathan Evans and Scott Evans for their leadership and their transparency, and to JLL for their professionalism. Our presentation will be quick. We support the exclusive negotiations agreement. We negotiated that in good faith, and both sides, I think, gave a little in order to hopefully present a document that meets your expectation. In the end, we know it's how quickly can we get a shovel in the ground, and it's these milestones that we are committed to meet. These will be the business terms, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. These will be the business terms with which, if you are comfortable with it, you will direct your staff and legal staff to put together the development agreements. We're going to talk about our teams, our responsibilities as co-developers, overview of the revised conceptual site plan. We heard you in December about the things you wanted. Your team heard you as well, and we spent the past 90 days being qualified based on our ability to deliver what we hope we heard correctly in terms of what you want at the marina to create an exciting place. So we won't go into this. You pretty much know who we are. We are co-developers. You asked us to come together and divide our responsibilities. We're going to share what that is between my company, Vaughn's company. Our companies own 75% of APD Tesra. The other 25% is Urban Retail, who owns the other 25%, and we went through the process of assigning our development rights. As you can see here, what we decided to do was to assign the development rights based upon the core strengths of each of the individual groups, whereas the retail components are going to be led by the APD Urban Retail team, and of course Urban Retail being one of your hometown companies based right here in Palm Beach County. And then the Tesla group will be leading the parking structure and the residential components, as well as us jointly moving forward and leading the hotel development components. We'll each talk about our relative strengths. We're happy to have one of the states, if not one of the nation's leading multifamily developers in Related. Related has two divisions. They have their market rate division and their affordable workforce housing division. They have both divisions at the table, and Shirley in the slides forward will show you the vision that they put forth on the market rate product. We heard you want intensity and densities, or densities and intensities. I can't tell you how many times we've heard that, and we hope that you'll be pleased with what we're presenting. Related is a multi-billion-dollar development. There have been several articles in Palm Beach County about how they've changed how they changed Miami in terms of Miami skyline and the projects that they have in Palm Beach County. And so we're happy that we're playing a very important role in bringing them to Palm Beach County. I just mentioned my partnership group, Urban Retail. We've been working very closely with them since 2017 on various different commercial retail projects across the country. New York State, of course, in Georgia. You all are familiar with it, Louisiana, and Florida as well. We've grown to have a very symbiotic relationship with Urban to the point that their primary investor, which is a group out of London by the name of Forum Partners, is a equity investor in APD Solutions Real Estate Group, as well as 50% equity holder in Urban Retail, which keeps us all tied together. We also work very closely with Urban using their property management and retail leasing platform, which gives us an ability to bring national and regional credit tenants to a project like this versus only having a tenant mix of local tenants. And so we're really focused on giving and creating an exciting tenant mix that gives us an ability to support local entrepreneurs, but also bring brand names that people can recognize, would embrace, and support. Our hotel partner developer is the Ergo Group. You know this property is the Marriott on Singer Island. We brought them in early to help us as a
development partner, not at risk. When we spoke to Ergo, we indicated it is our interest for our hotel to be minority owned, led by this group. Ergo has an outstanding reputation in the lodging industry. We slowed this project down on the onset of COVID, given the impact in the lodging industry. But we're happy that we have one of your own hotel developers on the team that has an outstanding relationship with many of the brands throughout the country. My background, I'm pretty much known locally here as the former director of the CRA. My reputation nationally is as the former director of the U.S. Department of Treasury CDFI fund, where I implemented the New Markets Tax Credit Program, played an informal role with Senator Tim Scott in the introduction of opportunity zones. And as you all know, when you unwound this transaction, when the community wanted the event center to be an anchor in the marina development, it was our first phase. It had a $3 million gap. We closed that gap using New Markets tax credits, and as you unwound, I guess last month or last quarter, you know that the investor, KeyBank, walked away from the $2 to $3 million that they put into the event center, and that was the structure that we put in place. We think, as we engage with JLL on Restaurant Row, we think we're going to have to be just as creative in the financing. It's not so much about the capabilities of Vaughn, myself, Urban, and related. In the end, it's going to be about the local businesses that we put into the restaurants, that we put into the food court, and all these tenants are going to need the creative financing that we can all think of in order to make this marina the type of place we know that you want, and for it to benefit your local community.
Now we'll just briefly talk about some of the changes in the conceptual site plan. What we've essentially done is we focused on keeping the structure of the site plan really tied to the infrastructure investments that you've already made. Instead of us restructuring the location of certain things in order to start with a blank canvas, what we thought made more sense was to take advantage of the foresight that your leadership has already made possible by having infrastructure investments at this location. So this conceptual site plan is very similar to the one we originally introduced in 2018, but we believe some of the changes and enhancements that we've made through the negotiations process makes it more exciting, and then we also have certain brand names that we have identified for some of the particular sites.
So you'll see in the agreement we reference elements 7 and 8, 4, 3, 2, and 1. 7 and 8, in looking at this slide, is where we consider to be the residential community. We envision this as a mixed income community. As you'll hear, 4 is where the aquarium is going. We've previously have referenced Restaurant Row as 1, 2, and 3. Site 0 is the event center where we are. As you know, you're pretty much halfway built out into the event center, and so there's some work to be done here. And then 5 is where we'll continue to be creative and working with your staff as to what this will be. We've envisioned it as sort of a food hall, public market, retail plaza with the linear park. The negotiations with related on Site 7, as you'll see in a moment, we will negotiate that whatever we put on Site 5, 5A, B, or C, that the density would be no higher than 2 stories so that we could protect the views for what we envision to be a 20, maybe 25-story market rate tower at the corner of Broadway and 13th. It'll be the entryway into the marina. One of the things that we commend your staff and your consultant with is that we went through a process, pretty extensive, to understand the supply and demand for parking, not only for what's there now, what will be there in the future. And so what you can see aligning somewhat in orange is what is proposed to be a 1,600 space parking garage. The workforce housing is what you see that is in what looks to be like a L shape. And then the two market rate towers, they look like two towers, but in the lower floors, they'll be connected. And so this has been the creative work of Related in terms of meeting what we understand will be the future zoning changes in order to activate Broadway. And driving in with the things that's happening in Lake Park, we know that you want to generate excitement to create that catalytic development coming down Broadway. And so when you come over the bridge, and if you can imagine this 20-story tower nestled with the 8-story tower to create this new walkable community that will invigorate the marina, is part of this exciting vision that we're looking to put in place. We do know that Riviera Beach is a working waterfront, given the port and the various other businesses you have that make their living off the water. And so we know that there is a market for the working waterfront, and yet we also know that there's a desire to really spark a revitalization along the Broadway corridor. And so we are tied to the vision of reimagining Riviera Beach and what you want to accomplish on Broadway, and we hope to be that spark.
As you all may recall, our original approach, and we continue to support, that we believe that Marina Village can be a very strong destination project. We believe that the local community certainly can enjoy the amenities and the other aspects that will be here, but the success will come with an ability to attract people from miles away to bring their disposable income and to deposit it right here in this community in order to increase your tax base. One of the things that we promoted as a part of this negotiation was bringing in a tenant that we have a very close relationship with, which is Seaquest Interactive Aquarium. Many of you know we just completed doing a Seaquest project in Atlanta. We built the largest Seaquest. We built Seaquest number 10, 25,000 square feet at Stonecrest Mall, which is a project that we work closely with Urban Retail. Our team completed the leasing, the negotiations, the tenant build out, and the initial marketing, as well as negotiating some of the community benefits with the Seaquest principals. Seaquest has subsequently begun opening an additional 4 locations, and they're very interested in Riviera Beach Marina Village as their 15th location. We've been speaking to them very intently about this particular project, and they've given us some recommendations about what they believe the overall economic impact will be from their project. They're essentially projecting that they'll attract 400,000 to 450,000 individual unique visitors to Marina Village. That's a great testimony, but also what they shared with us is that 29% of those visitors will come from 20 miles away, but 40% of those visitors will come from 20 to 50 miles away. That will make this actually a destination project. What that accumulates is a $40 million economic impact in the first year, but will also create jobs because they will hire 45 individual people. Hopefully, the majority of those will come from the Riviera Beach community with a $1.1 million annual payroll. We work very closely with them, doing all types of educational. They view themselves as an edutainment company. They do different things like they support Minorities in Shark Science, MISS, which is a program for African American females to come. It's an annual internship that they have. They have programs where the youth in the community come in once a month. They call it Sleeping with the Sharks, and they have an overnight. They have marine biologists and animal husbandry jobs, so it's not just service and retail level jobs. There are very highly skilled positions that are there where many of your local colleges and universities will be an outlet for employment right here in Riviera Beach with Seaquest.
Video didn't load.
We had a video to share with you, but what we could also very quickly talk about is local testimony. We work with Seaquest doing a lot of community outreach. So, for example, during the late stages of the pandemic, we were able to give free entry to Seaquest for anyone who was vaccinated or brought their vaccination card. And we got 2,000 people to come in on those particular days at Seaquest. We've also done certain things with youth. There was a local family who had a tragedy, and we were able to bring them in during the holidays. That tragedy prevented them from having a Christmas. And the children, the mother with 5 children, were able to come in to Seaquest. Everything is completely interactive. All the animals can be interacted with, fed. The whole exhibit gives children just a bright light in their eyes, but it's also a land and sea experience. So there's an aquarium, and then there's a section that we call BRAM, Birds, Reptiles, and Mammals, which in our location, it includes wallabies, which are small kangaroos, otters, we have kinkajou, and so some very safe but exotic animals that children are not used to coming in contact with, and Seaquest staff services to interact with them. An attraction like this, bringing almost 500,000 new people to this site, would be an amazing development for this project. So as a part of the revised site plan, what we've also proposed is the ability to lease the vacant spaces in the event center right away. We've shared with Jones Lang LaSalle and your staff support that we have 7 or 8 individual national and regional credit tenants that are interested in filling those spaces. As soon as we move forward and touch the milestones that have been identified, our plan is to have a site visit with those individuals to come here and view, so that we can create, in essence, a bidding war for the spaces at Marina Village. But we have some very great ideas, from food and beverage, a seafood restaurant, a beer garden. We've historically been talking about interactive components using technologies such as Topgolf swing suites. But we have a strong list of regional and national credit tenants that we plan to fill your vacant spaces in the event center.
So we actually loaded the PDF. We had a PowerPoint, and we had another slide that highlighted the economic impact. What we're talking about is over a $250 million investment. The residential on sites 7, 8, and the parking alone will exceed $200 million. We're looking at the creation of over 847 construction jobs, nearly 500 permanent jobs, a contribution to the tax base for an amount of a little less than $2 million annually. And so all these things we feel will be contributions to your vision to invigorate your city along the Broadway corridor. As I said, we are in support, and I believe JL is going to give you an overview of the negotiations agreement. We have spent the past 3 years being qualified as your developer, and we worked cooperatively with the process that JL and your staff put in place. And so now we're ready to get into the details of the redevelopment. They have asked, and we have cooperated and given them preliminary projections, so they have an understanding of our capital stacks and how we plan to redevelop each of the components. So what you will see, and those milestone dates are outlined in this agreement, we will come back to you with the proposed terms for a development agreement and a ground lease for or a land purchase for Site 7. That property is owned by the CRA, so it gives you some flexibility as to what to do with that land. On Element 8, also, that property is owned by the CRA, and what has been shared, at least at that site, is a preference for a ground lease. And so we're discussing those terms as well as the local match requirement as we intend to raise our equity for Element 8 using the tax credit program. Element 0, as I mentioned, is the event center. Not only will Vaughn present a plan for the lease up of the event center, but also the management agreement for the private spaces within this building, and I assume maybe beginning some discussion about the overall management at the marina. And then the restaurant site, so if my memory serves me correctly, I don't have the agreement in front of us. Elements 7, 8, and 0 are intended to present to you the business terms in June. And I believe the business terms for the restaurant sites, or at least Element 1, that can be replicated for 2, 3, and 4, I believe is an October action item. And if I'm incorrect, then I'm sure Nick and his team will correct me. But that's it. We have enjoyed working with your team over the past 90, 120 days. They've been professional, transparent, and knowledgeable of the development process, and their input has allowed us to come to you with hopefully a better product.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, who's coming up next?
At this time, if we can have our team from JLL to share their presentation.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, thank you very much for your time this evening. I just want to say I think we've come a long way in the last several months. Last time we were here was in December, and I think we presented a much different project than you heard about today. So that's, I think, due to the hard work of both the development team, their vertical partners, and CRA staff to really get this to a better place, to really make this a transformative project for the city of Riviera Beach. So I thank both the development team as well as staff for their hard efforts to this point. We're going to be brief, and we're going to talk about a couple things. Number one, we're going to talk about the exclusive negotiation agreement and some high-level key points. We know that the agreement has been presented to you for review, and along with a memo that we prepared. I want to touch on the highlights of that memo. And then Ed Chapman, my colleague, will talk about Phase 1 direction, talk about where we were, where we are, and some things for consideration as we plan to come to you in June. So as far as the exclusive negotiation agreement, the agreement really sets the, what I call rules of the road, or rules of engagement for negotiations going forward between the selected development team and the CRA staff. It defines several milestones which we will collectively achieve throughout the negotiation period to bring a collaborative effort in bringing forth what we think is a best deal for both the development team as well as the city. It establishes a negotiation period. That negotiation period is, at this point, 6 months from the date of execution, with flexibility for extensions through the progress and achievement of milestones along the way. It provides provisions for termination by either party. This is a two-way street. So in the event that either party is in breach, there are opportunities for termination and a parting of ways of the parties. And in the event of a breach by the CRA, we've included provisions for reimbursements for third-party costs to the development team as per industry standard. As far as the milestones, our first phase of development, we're hoping to bring forth agreed upon business terms in June, and those elements of development include the revised conceptual master plan. You saw a sneak peek of the work we've done to date. We hope to have a more refined plan in June of this year. We also hope to bring forth business terms on a ground lease for Element 8, the affordable housing project that you heard the development team talk about. We hope to bring forward business terms for the Element 7 market rate building, the 400-unit market rate building you saw a massing study of. And we hope to bring forward a leasing and management agreement to give Urban and APD the opportunity to manage the vacant spaces at the event center and activate the event center. Following that, in October, we hope to have terms for a ground lease for elements 1 through 4, Restaurant Row, as well as the Seaquest location. And then next summer, we hope to come with you with business terms for both element 5 and the retail components at element 5, as well as the element 6 hotel.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, just echo the team's sentiments of our excitement for the progress that's been made on a potential development over the last 90 to 120 days. Just wanted to summarize where we were 120 days ago and where we are now, just highlighting the major changes when you talk about element 4, previously being a proposed park, and now we've moved forward to recreational, educational activities, most notably the Seaquest, as Vaughn eloquently presented, which will bring additional mass density as well as economic development to the project. Element 7, as we just reviewed some of the massing, most TBD before, and now we're at 400 units, so again, speaking to the density and activation of the site, and then the associated increasing parking units based on the additional activities. So again, a lot of progress has been made thus far. And just a summary and our recommendation for constituents to consider for phase 1, again, continue to work on the addition of 400 plus or minus market rate units at element 7. Again, we're still refining business terms. All indications appear that there will be an offer for ground rent, ground lease, so that the city CRA will be able to earn a return on its land, but then also balancing those amounts with any potential TIF remittance. Number 2, we're recommending that city CRA commit to providing the local match for element 8, being the affordable housing units. And lastly, number 3, consider executing a third-party management agreement, again, to begin to activate the vacant portions of the event center immediately. So again, thank you so much for your time. That completes our overview.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that presentation. We do have 4 public comment cards, so we'll go to that, and then we'll come back to the board.
Madam Chair, if I may, just to summarize the progress that has been made as a result of the new proposal that's before you this evening. I think originally when it was contemplated to move forward with this particular development team, the market was profoundly different then than it is now. I've had the opportunity to facilitate and be part of conversations with regards to workforce and affordable housing and how it is drastically created for a challenging situation here in Palm Beach County, with the median home price being over $500,000. And when it was stated to me from the county administrator at a meeting with the city managers that conceivably only 12% of persons here in Palm Beach County can afford to acquire a home of that value, I think it is something that we certainly have to really consider when we look at properties and parcels that we have to facilitate workforce and affordable housing. We know that there's a significant deficiency. There's about 100,000 keys or doors short of where we need to be countywide. And so as we originally had this proposal before us, it was contemplated that it was going to be roughly about 136 units of affordable housing on the marina property. But with the work with the developers and the consultants and staff, there's 400 market rate units that are now contemplated as this particular development. Also, we've had conversations about activating the parking garage, so you won't have a situation whereby you have this large parking structure where there's no retail or front-facing retail on your major roadway, whether it's Blue Heron or Broadway or 13th Street. The other side of it is we know that this development project and this relationship with the developer has to look at being a catalytic project. And what I mean by that is how this project can help facilitate subsequent developments within the corridor. One of the things that we've heard with conversations with the developer as well as our development team is that right now for a project of this magnitude, Riviera Beach is an unproven market. But we know that there is interest in the market. We do believe with some of the modifications that have been proposed, as well as the addition of Seaquest, if we're able to make that come to fruition, it creates a place whereby you will have persons that can spend days doing activities and events within the Marina Village property, especially with some of the other things we're doing with the expansion of our docks and how we look to activate our marina, especially with the item that I brought before the board not too long ago about the interlocal agreement with Palm Beach County when they look to facilitate and breathe life into Peanut Island and the historical facilities that are there. So we see this project as a catalytic project. We see this project as a project that could facilitate subsequent developments in the corridor. And the other side of it is we have structured a position or an agreement that allows for us to get to some milestones that have been challenging for the agency and the community to get to for a long time. And we know that there's a lot of work that's ahead of us, but we're committed to get through those points. Now, one of the challenging components of the arrangement is going to be how do you facilitate a development of such size and understand that there's an obligation from the city CRA to work together with regards to parking and what that cost is going to be parking and how do we fund parking and what is the risk that the city CRA is willing to take, because these types of arrangements are all about risk mitigation. Where are we comfortable at, where are we not comfortable at, and how do we work through those particular issues? I do want to state that when this proposal was put forth, only 2 entities responded. And so when you have a situation where you've had a project that's been delayed for some reasons, the market looks at that differently. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to continue the work that we're doing to get us to those important decision points whereby you as the board have to make a decision as to what the relation looks like. But I think the proposal and what's in front of you is profoundly better than what was before. And I think that the increases that you will see in the activities at Marina Village, as well as the values of the assets adjacent to the properties and down the Broadway corridor, will create for the synergy necessary to see subsequent redevelopment occur. And so this may not be the project that the city sees or the CRA sees a windfall of profits, but it may be the project that facilitates the subsequent windfalls and the consistent wins that the city gets, similar to our counterparts at West Palm, Boynton, Boca, and the like. And so I did want to say that because I think it's germane when you're looking at this particular proposal and the conversations and negotiations that have gone back and forth, because I think it's important that if these units come to this particular property, you can have a situation where roughly about 1,500 people can live right here. And so there is a situation where you're going to have activations of restaurants and other amenities and other activities. And we were talking about with some of the expansions of the docks that we're doing, there's an educational element that's required with some of the grants that we have got from the Florida Inland Navigational District, that you can conceivably have outdoor experiences with our marine life that carries you into Seaquest. And so we're excited about that. Now, one caveat to that is that Bicentennial Park does have some restrictions as it relates to how we were able to obtain the parcel. And so Sean Pittman and the Pittman Law Group are talking to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to see if there's an opportunity to facilitate a change to the deed restrictions that are with the property. And we believe that since there's an educational component and it's consistent with marine life and the natural amenities that we have here in our community, that it may be something that we can get some leniency from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So we are still working on that, but that's some work in Tallahassee. But in closing, Madam Chair, I think if we're able to move forward with this particular agreement, it allows for us to get into the nuance of the deal-making process. We've had a lot of substantive discussions about the deal-making components. Our financial advisors are looking at some of the components of that. So we have a lot of the documents and a lot of the items that are considered to be ready for milestone dates already queued up and just need some additional work from staff. So I did want to share those remarks with the board because I think this is a important decision that's before you this evening, and the proposal has gotten significantly better than what was originally shared with the board some time ago. And I believe that concludes my comments unless we have the video from Seaquest to share.
You all get the gist of it. Do you all get the gist of it, or you want to continue watching? Do we want to pause it, or you want to continue it? You kind of get a good understanding of what it is. Let's say we're going to talk. Are they going to talk on the video, or is just showing the inside? Does anybody know?
Nobody's talking on the video, Madam Chair.
Okay. Did you all want to see it to the end, or, I mean, you were good with what you saw? Huh? You good? Okay. Great video. I mean, if you've been the one, you kind of know what's in there, but very interesting. Definitely see it being an educational facility where we could have field trips, so that's a plus. All right, so we're going to go to public comment now?
Yes.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll come back to the board. Go ahead.
Okay, we have 4 public comment cards. The first 2 are Elvis Downs, followed by Delcia Brooke Hamilton.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, City Manager. Hope all is well. City Council, I'd like to congratulate you all on being reelected. That's great. Mr. Vaughn Irons, I want to congratulate you on getting your new kidney. Great to hear that you're in good health. I'd like to say hi to you as well, Mr. Tony Brown. I'm here today to speak on Pangea Grill, Inc. Of course, I'm the son of Delcia Brooks Hamilton, CEO of Pangea Grill. And I'd like to ask the city to simply just recommend Pangea Grill as being one of the restaurants on Restaurant Row. The reason why I believe that request is valid because she has been here for 7 years since the inception of the Riviera Beach Marina project. Due to inconsistencies, I'm not going to bring those up, but she was the first one to respond to the original RFP in 2015 for minority restaurant operators. She did pass the qualifications with flying colors, but due to there being a slight discrepancy with the parking, that particular aspect of the RFP was put on hold. So throughout that process, she has been consistent, dedicated. She is the pure definition of a hardworking black woman. So I just want to ask the city today to recommend. I know you're not able to demand her being one of the restaurants on the Riviera Beach Marina, but I'd just like to ask that you guys, recommend to Mr. Irons. I know he is in charge of Restaurant Row. We've just been here for quite some time, and I think if anybody does deserve an opportunity to operate on the marina, it is my mom, due to the time that has been invested over the last 8 years. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for your time. Once again, congratulations, Mr. Irons, Mr. Tony Brown, and you guys have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Delcia Brooke Hamilton.
And then who's after her?
Bonnie Larson.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair, Council.
Hold on
Mayor.
1 second, 1 second. The time? Go ahead.
Ready?
Yep.
Good evening, Chair, Council, Mayor, and City Manager, and the people of Riviera Beach. My name is Delcia Brooks Hamilton, and I am the CEO of Pangea Grill. I want everyone to know that I have been committed to this process for the past 8 years, working towards building Pangea Grill on the marina. I responded to an RFP back in 2015 that was put out by the CRA looking for minority restaurant operators. I'm requesting the opportunity this evening before you to work with the current developer, ADP. I am qualified, capable, and have the funding necessary to get this project done. I have been in the restaurant business for the past 40 years. My family have owned restaurants, hotels in Central America, Barbados, and Panama. I recently have operated several restaurants in Boynton Beach and Royal Palm Beach. I would like to be considered as one of the restaurant operators for the Marina Restaurant Row. My existing rendering is an architectural drawing is specific for Pad Site B. And I'd like to say, welcome back, Mr. Irons. It's been a long time. And that's basically what I have to say. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Ms. Larson? And who's after Ms. Larson?
Ms. Shepherd.
I didn't hear you.
Ms. Shepherd.
Okay.
Bonnie Larson. I'm just reading this for the first time tonight, so I haven't seen the backup or anything on it, but I have plenty of comments. Anyway, they kept mentioning this has been 90 days to 120 days. This has been years that we've been working on this. My first question to you is, have they given you their financials? That was a big hang-up. They hadn't done it. We got to have those financials. You can't do it. We had a gentleman, Mr. Fishbein. I read his report a little while ago, and he said this was the most ludicrous arrangement he had seen in his life. Riviera Beach didn't like that assessment, so they hired someone else to do an assessment. That gentleman said these people have no money. How are they going to do it? Now we're talking about $100, $200-something million project. They couldn't come up with $1 million between the two groups. Now we have more people in this thing. Mr. Von Irons, again, hope your kidney does very, very well. That's a big operation. I would never have recognized you because I remembered when you came the first time, and one of the things you said was you were not a developer. You coordinated things, but you yourself were not a developer. I remember you saying that at the meeting. But now we have all these other people involved also. Some on the council have said that we should do what the people want us to do in Riviera Beach. I went to the Treasure Coast Regional Council at the beginning of all of this, and no one asked us, the residents or owners, did we want residential housing on our public marina? No one asked us that. The city said, you are going to get this. No, this is marina property. This is waterfront, the most valuable property that we have. Why should we have people who can afford it, or maybe who can't afford it with the workforce housing, why should they be allowed to live at our public marina? Let's put stuff at our public marina for all of us. Forget the residential housing there. Also, this group seems to be telling us what they're going to do first. Of the 8 items, they want the parking garage and they want the concrete work. I haven't mentioned any of the other stuff, really. Why aren't we telling them what we want to see down there first? The other thing, who wrote this agreement? That's my question. And I can't believe we're talking about an aquarium again. 25 years ago, probably, they discussed having a marina here. All those years ago, now we're talking about it again. It's unbelievable. Now, are they talking about putting this at the Bicentennial Park, where there's a question of what you can put there? But that is not a new idea at all. It was shot down 25 years ago, and ever since then, now it's coming back again. Who is Urgo? U-R-G-O. Don't know who they are. Identified brand names. They didn't mention who that would be. You talk about a food hall. No, if you're going to have a food hall, you're not going to have restaurants. I've got about a million other comments, but my 3 minutes are up.
Ms. Larson.
Margaret Shepherd, Riviera Beach.
Good evening.
Ms. Evans, must I say one thing? You brought us a long way. I enjoy the library. When I pass by, I get a chance to see my fire station. When I go down Broadway, I get to see Riviera Beach Cove. And, you know, now we're about to build a facility. And now the dream is coming through a reimagined Riviera Beach. It's coming. And so must I say to Mr. Brown and to Mr. Arnn, I neither would have recognized you, but thank God you're healthy and you're back. And I do appreciate that we're coming now to the edge of the road of building up our waterfront. I had a birthday party the other day. If I tell you the bill that we paid, I became very depressed because the money should have came here to Riviera Beach, not to Palm Beach Gardens. And I hear Ms. Brooks talk about this restaurant, and I could just imagine this young lady having a spot, the hospitality I think she would really bring to this city. I'm impressed that Mr. Brown, who built this facility, and before anything was built in here, I remember coming, we jumped on a little cart, and he was taking me around, and I'm just amazed. Now we're going into part 2. I encourage you all to really think about it. J.B. Dixon always say, there's nothing being done, just look at what's being done. And I'm appreciative of it. And now I want to be more appreciative of the second phase. Do I feel comfortable with Mr. Brown? I do. Was it some mistakes made in the calculation? Who's perfect? Who's perfect? And now it's the time that he is in the business of banking. And I think if nobody else have that facade in their head about banking, I think he does with his other fellow people. I urge us, you know, the election is over. I just want to say, put up your little boxing gloves. Let's get down to work. Let's work with this developer. Let's work with the city, Mr. Evans. He's pushing. He's pushing. He has, and I heard Ms. Lanier say, well, you can build here, build there. I couldn't imagine until I went downtown. And I tell you, all those buildings that being built in West Palm Beach, and we have built what? Nothing for entertainment. Somebody asked me, will my granddaughter come back? She's 28. And she said, Nana, when they get something that I could come home to, I will. How do the other children feel that way? How can you imagine kids born and raised here, living elsewhere? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, questions from the board?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. If we know that the 9% LIHTC money is competitive, and that it only comes around, I think, once a year. So what happens if that money is not acquired by the development team is one question. I also wonder what we currently get. I'd like to know that whatever we're going to get out of any ground lease as a result of this project is significantly greater than whatever rent we're currently getting from Rafiki Tiki. I don't know. I really don't even know what that is, but I have heard that it's not anything substantial. So that would be interesting to hear. I'm very excited about the aquarium. I mean, I wasn't here 25 years ago, Bonnie, but it's a long time coming, and I think it's really exciting. You know, we have a tourism development committee working on a master plan for tourism, and this would certainly be a great asset with regard to tourism. I would love to see, I mean, many of you have been to Seattle. I want Pike Place Fish Market in here. That's what I'd like to see. But my question really is about the LIHTC money, primarily.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
if I may, and staff can certainly provide some additional insight. You're absolutely right. It is a very competitive process, so it will require a lot of work on both the developer and the city side as well, and the CRA related to, putting together the deal. And then there is a commitment, a financial commitment to assist in facilitating the gap financing that's necessary, but it is competitive. However, in the proposal, it contemplates the market rate towers going first. So our hope from the staff standpoint is that the market rate towers do so well that in the event that the LIHTC monies or deal doesn't come to fruition, that there is still the demand to expand the market rate component. But certainly that is something that, it is a competitive process, and so the application and all the things that would have to be facilitated by the developer in the city may have to go into one, possibly two cycles, but it is contemplated that the market rates go first.
Thank you.
If you guys wanted to provide any additional comments
Dr.
on this.
Patel, I would just add to that, and not to go too far into the negotiations before offering up the final business terms, but we've been talking through the idea of a conditional ground lease that gives the development team the opportunity to apply for the 9% tax credits and give them either one or two opportunities to secure those tax credits. And if that doesn't happen, we would look at other options.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to first comment on the fact that I really think that the agreement is woefully inadequate. We had an item before this that said that we were doing a wrecking of the Miami subs. It was 16 pages. This agreement is 6 pages. And I wanted to ask, who is RBMB11 LLC?
If I may say, and Tony and Vaughn can correct me, that is the entity that they have formed as the joint team for this particular project.
Well, why have we never seen this before?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
That is the entire name of the Limited Liability Corporation. They've been referred to as TESRA and APD or what have you, but that is the entire legal name of the entity.
I'm just asking because I've never seen this before. I've never seen this name before. It wasn't on any of the documents prior to this meeting. It wasn't on any agreements. It wasn't a part of the proposals that were submitted for the RFP. This is my first time seeing this name. And then when we talk about this, this deal, by your own admission from the consultant and from the city is that it's new. And if it is a new deal, it needs to be back out on the street for proposals. This deal, this new deal, has had no competitive solicitation. I mean, who wouldn't take that deal? There has been no competitive solicitation for this. It has changed every time. We have had about 5 or maybe 6 meetings, maybe 5 meetings on this particular subject in the last year or so, and every single time it comes back to us, it's changed. It's different. It's new. And we are getting to the point where now we want to go into an exclusive agreement for 3 years, and then that what will be held hostage for 3 years. I mean, it's been on the table for 7. So you're going to give an agreement that we cannot negotiate with anybody for 3 years, and it's been on the table for 7. Second of all, the business terms need to be a part of the agreement. We have not gotten any information about the financials of this organization. I see a different name up here now. I mean, we asked for this numerous times. We need to have the financial information. We need to have the financial details of the people who are going to embark on a $300 million project. And we don't have it. But we keep going into agreements. We keep agreeing to keep moving forward. We have capabilities to be able to discern this information, but we have not. The basis of, giving an exclusive agreement, and we don't even have financials. There was no mutual consideration that was done. It seems to me that how this deal has come to the table again, and everything is changed but the fact that we don't have any financials. This whole project has changed from day one, and we're still at the same point, no financials. We don't know what's going to happen. It was supposed to be a deal where it was a master development where everything would be included. Now the developer is picking and choosing which ones they want to do. I mean, other developers should be given the opportunity to be able to compete for this. But I'll digress right now. I'll come back later. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Let's see what we got here. Mr. Von Irons, good to see you. Excellent to see you. Tony Brown, thank you so much for your constant commitment to the city and to the firm that we hired. You guys did a phenomenal job. You heard exactly what we were looking for, and you brought a proposal to the table. That's all we could ask for, is a proposal to kind of get the work started. Mr. Evans and Mr. Evans, thank you as well. That's first and foremost. There's a bunch of questions and concerns that I want to address first thing, and I think we're in a position, understanding the real estate and the dynamic of where our city is, we have to think big and go big, because we live in a uniquely aquatic environment. I love the idea of the Seaquest and the Aquarium coming in, because it showcases our waterfront. It provides jobs and opportunities, but we have to demand that that's actually done. So in addition to Seaquest, and I know, Mr. Irons, you've worked with them, if we can look at some other additional or larger aquariums. I've been all over the world and traveled, actually to California just recently, and I went over to Monterey Bay, the aquarium. I've been over to Chattanooga's aquarium. I've been in some of the biggest aquariums in the world. So comparing it to what we have and what we want to present, to also expanding and thinking as large as possible. I don't want to limit us, because we're in an economy and an environment right now that is conducive towards development, tourism, and we've never developed this corridor since I've been a child, and I'm looking north and south all over the East Coast. So I don't want us to just kind of shortchange the last developable beachfront, waterfront that we have. Recently, when I was in California, I went over to Santa Monica Pier. The pier is beautiful, and I just envisioned seeing something like that right on our corridor, having a restaurant on the base of the pier and at the edge of the pier, having shopping, retail going all up and down the pier. So something like that leading over towards, Peanut Island. There's so much opportunity for us to develop this corridor, and I don't want us to kind of fall short, and I don't want to put us in the position to where we establish a development agreement in terms similar to what we did at the Ocean Mall. It's not lucrative or beneficial to the city. So it has to be as absolutely beneficial to our community. So considering when we're going through this negotiation, looking at the maximum potential, the market rate, the high rises, the affordable development, that's all beautiful. The restaurants, excellent. I also want to ask, is element 5, the marketplace? I know that we're talking about coming with the development agreement for next year. Is that highest and best use for that piece of land? I really want us to delve into that to find out if we're maximizing on that space. Understanding that the hotel, or I'm sorry, the residential that's going to be going there is going to require that that development can't be more than 2 stories just for the views. But we want to make sure that we're maximizing on that space. And is Delray benefiting from their food market? What is the impact that it's having to their economy and their community? Last thing, commercial space. One of our speakers, I believe Ms. Shepherd, spoke about, entertainment. Are we leaving any space for music rooms, event spaces, lounges, things that can actually provide social engagement? Because once individuals go out to eat, they may want to enjoy the ocean. They may want to sit down at a lounge. They might want to have that opportunity for social engagement, to fellowship with the families. So having that opportunity as well. Last but not least is the restaurant pads. How are we going to address the restaurant pads? Because we had two speakers tonight that have been coming to this mic for the last 7 years. I want to make sure that it's a fair and equitable process of selecting these pads, make sure that we have a mix of world-renowned restaurants, have some local restaurants, have something that's going to impact the community and be beneficial. And I want to make sure it's a fair process. For example, I believe Ms. Delcia Brooks has been speaking, and she was one of the first recipients of this RFP prior to us having to go back out to market because of the parking constraints. What opportunity is she going to have? Is it going to be an open pool? Are we going to be selective? Because as a board, we can say, listen, this is what we want. So who are we working with? What is going to be the plan for the restaurants? How are we going to actually select those pads? And how is it going to be conducive towards the market that we currently have? Lastly, the MEHOP program that we just recently spoke about, and development from taking 20 to 25 or higher stories, making sure that those funds are going back into the affordable and workforce housing. Because if we're going to take it up to 20 stories, the impact of the $2 million is amazing for ad valorem tax. But I want to make sure that we're also impacting the residents here to make it sustainable. Because we don't want to look like Hollywood Boulevard with development all up and down Broadway, and our residents can't sustain, live here, or continue to be engaged in our community because they're being priced out or pushed out. So those are some of the concerns I want us to try to address tonight before we move forward with the development agreement. But as again, I'm excited. Thank you guys for just staying committed to this. And even Ms. Brooks, thank you. You've been committed as well, just kind of monitoring it. Everybody that's been involved and engaged, you guys are the ones that's very important in trying to get our city to develop and grow. And it took us 3 years to get to this point. I don't want to take any more time to get this done. Like we said earlier, development costs, material costs is all going through the roof. So the more and the longer that we wait on this, the longer it's going to take to actually get something done and to even make it at all affordable for our community. So let's see what we can get done, get some activity going, and really focus on the development that's at hand. So thank you guys, thank you everyone, and if we can get some of those concerns addressed, please. Madam Chair.
Can you all go ahead and answer those? Then we'll come
Jump
back.
in, huh? You wasn't listening. Please, if any of the concerns, we can start with the aquarium, if that's contracted locked in, if we could talk about the housing components, if we could talk about the restaurant components. So just some of the main concerns.
I'll start to try to address those. We will follow up.
Pull the mic up a little closer to you. Pull the mic up a little.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we will certainly follow up to see how the Delray Marketplace is doing. And the element 5 is probably the last portion of the project as proposed right now. And so as we start to negotiate on that element, and we really have just had preliminary talks, we will certainly include a highest and best use review of that. And obviously we don't want to impact the Site 7, but at the same time we need to bring a product that will not only fit the community, but provide us new business opportunities for residents, and provide something that will help draw more visitors here and provide additional attraction to the area, as well as providing us, of course, return on our investment. I would ask that the development team come up and address your questions related to the restaurants. Originally, back in 2015, the CRA hired the firm CBRE, who did assist us with putting out an opportunity to independently hire restaurants. Not hire, but to find a partner to come in and build out our waterfront. What we found through that process was that individually bringing each restaurant one at a time presented a variety of challenges. One being that you want to make sure you get the right mix of restaurants, ones that won't compete with each other but will contribute so that people can come down to the Marina Village and then perhaps choose a different type of restaurant to go to. During that time, CBRE did interview multiple firms, and then the ones who were selected for further discussions then came in and had discussions with CRA staff. And then beyond that, some of the various restaurants that we did negotiate with. So perhaps the development team could come up and address how they're going to approach selecting the restaurants that eventually will build out not only Site 1, Site 2, and Site 3.
Oh, yeah. I think before Mr. Irons speaks, let me again address Ms. Brooks' concern. She was not given a commitment. Mr. Scott Evans pretty much summed up the process. Once we built this facility, Phase 1, the strategy was, do we think we'll get a restaurant that will design, build on the space? And CBRE put out a solicitation to do that. And Ms. Brooks, yes, was interested. We had two issues. At the time, zoning only allowed enough parking to do a restaurant or a tenant in this building and another tenant on pad site, what we call pad site 1. We did not have enough parking to completely do the build out on Restaurant Row. So we pulled back our marketing solicitation and we started looking at who would be the best restaurant that would occupy this building and pad site 1. Several restaurateurs were interested either in one or the other, and we had extensive negotiations with a major restaurant that wanted both the pad site 1 and the event center. No one wanted to put an investment of a restaurant in on pad site 1 and then do a restaurant in this building and have the back of the house of restaurant 1 be in their face, in their front yard. So Ms. Brooks correctly cooperated. She expressed her interest. She expressed her interest in what I believe on our plan is Site 2. It was registered. But at that point, a new board was elected. My contract was terminated. CBRE was terminated. None of you were here. So there is a new board. Ms. Brooks has been introduced to Mr. Irons. He hasn't been able to negotiate with Ms. Brooks because he doesn't have the authority to do so. But in terms of history, that's the history. She was in the pipeline. There was no commitment, and her interest was registered.
I would just simply add that our typical process for selecting, I have a head of leasing, director of leasing. We had an opportunity to introduce Camille Coakley, who's our director of leasing, to Ms. Brooks, and we will facilitate and process her like other tenants looking at the mix. When we met her 3 years ago, we were very complimentary. We had a very positive discussion in the council chamber, and staff has already been directed to continue to work with her as effectively as they've been directed to continue to work with Dimitri and his expansion desires. So we are very much focused on supporting local entrepreneurship to participate. As I stated earlier, we believe it's very important to put together a tenant mix that has national and regional credit tenants as well as local entrepreneurs. The reason that I stress that is because part of our responsibility to you is to put together a project that has the capital capacity in order to increase the value of the asset. And so putting together a strong tenant mix does that, and her process will be properly evaluated. We'll make sure that on our leasing reports, the results of that are clearly and transparently shared with staff as we proceed and move forward. And we look forward to hearing more from her, but as Mr. Brown mentioned, we were prevented from taking any additional action because we don't have the authority to negotiate with her any further than a pleasantry.
And to that point, just a follow-up, Madam Chair. To that point, I understand that you guys haven't. It was just more so understanding what is going to be the steps of moving forward with it, because Ms. Brooks, I believe, has just been asking how can she be a part of or a player and given an opportunity. So that was the concern, and thank you for addressing that. We'll move forward with that. And I know that you didn't have an agreement, so you couldn't actually solicit or finalize any tenants for the space. I did have a question, though, since you are addressing the restaurants and the hotel. The economic impact of the 50-year land lease. What is going to be the impact on that, on those restaurants, on the hotel, on the land? What is going to be our economic impact?
It's significant. In my former capacity as your CRA director, we couldn't get a restaurant to make what would, in essence, almost be a $5 to $10 million investment on a 50-year lease. So that was a concern. The other bigger issue was the fact we couldn't commit to parking capacity. So if we just talk about the business deal, the 50-year lease, and the inability to provide parking and to negotiate a valet service, particularly for sophisticated restaurateurs. And then I would add the other major issue that Mr. Irons will have to address is the concern of not so much of what they're going to, well, if they're going to design and build, then it's their facility, and so their interest is the ground lease. But the other expense that would be allocated to the restaurant is what we call common area maintenance. To date, I think your CRA, if my memory serves me correctly, is spending about $1 million to $2 million on just maintaining the marina. That effectively should be allocated to your private tenants in order to pay. And so we have to negotiate, and when our team, Mr. Irons taking the lead, has to negotiate and understand what is the allocation of common area maintenance. Should some of that be allocated to the water side of the business? And what does that mean? And so those are the things that when Mr. Irons started negotiating with the tenant, and even in the conversation with Ms. Brooks, what's your expectation? Are you going to build it? You want him to build it? What is your pro forma? Your consultants have asked us for financial information. So the answer to the question is our financial information has been provided. And so they will be looking at the deals. I'm sure, as Mr. Irons said, he's going to look at the economic sustainability of the tenants he recruit. And so we have issues that a restaurateur is going to ask, and we don't have an answer because we have to negotiate those terms with your staff.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board?
Get everything? No, but I'll come back. Go ahead.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So I thank you for that, Mr. Brown. One of my questions was going to be about the financing. You know, it keeps coming up about financing, and I know we have Nick and Ed here, and this is precisely what they were tasked to do. This was the very first thing that they were tasked to do about the cities or about the developer's ability to deliver this proposal with the finances that they provided. And I want either the team from JLL or perhaps either one of the Evans to address that concern. Has that been met? And particularly, JLL, you can take a stab at it, but more importantly, as it relates to the requirement that was listed out in the request for proposal. That's my first question.
Thank you, Councilman. We can confirm that we have received financial statements from all of the development entities for the proposed development. So that's number one. We have collected financial statements.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, follow up.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Scott Evans, I think you were CRA director at the time. When those proposals came in, did those finances meet the requirement as publicized in the RFP?
At the time, and I think I'm thinking back to 2018. There was requirements to provide information on finances. Both of the teams did submit some information, but not everything that we were looking for. But the thought was that there would be much additional analysis, and we would really get into the details of their finances once a team was selected. and then we were negotiating the agreement. So there was submittals of finances of some sort during the original RFP process, but we were definitely going to be looking for additional financial information as the process moved along. And I think now, although the timing has been longer than I think the board or staff would have liked, the additional details and the financial statements have now been provided.
Okay, so thank you for that, Mr. Scott Evans. Let me clarify. What was the requirements? I think I recall something like letters of interest and an audited financial statement by a certified public accountant. Was there anything, is that correct? And then am I leaving anything out?
Since it was from 2018, I would have to research it, but certainly letters of interest, I do recall, was one of the specific requirements, showing that whatever funding or whatever financing they were going to have, where that would come from, which entity, which bank. I do recall that was one of the requirements, and that was provided by both.
And was
Yes.
either of the teams, or jointly or individually, were they deemed non-responsive because of that? Did we determine that they did not meet the requirement of finances?
No, we completed a pretty detailed evaluation of both teams, and they were both ranked, and neither of the teams was disqualified. So they were both scored and then recommended to move forward with the highest ranked firm. And the history of it is that the board decided to then do additional presentations. And following those presentations, the development team came back to the board and requested if they could do a joint proposal after the selection had not been made at that last meeting.
Okay. In the RFP, did it provide for, I guess, what we have here today, this exclusive agreement, which, I guess probably needs some more explanation, but this isn't the development agreement, correct? This is just sets forth the negotiations. Is that accurate?
Yes, we've been working very hard to move along the project and to bring something that would bring value to the city. Through that process, there's a number of decisions that had to be made both by the developer and staff as we determine what would be the ideal project, what would work. So the milestone agreement is designed to lay out a schedule so that we can move forward in a quickly and expeditious manner, as this board has directed. And the discussion tonight was really to update the board on where those discussions have gone, to show you the various elements as they've been discussed and as they're being envisioned, to make sure that, because there's a lot of additional work and negotiations that are going to have to take place in order to bring you the actual development agreements. And so we wanted to make sure we took the time to update the board on that progress, how the project had evolved, and make sure that it was with what it met your expectations before we proceed further down the road of those discussions.
One last follow-up, Madam Chair. So, Nick, I believe the question was asked by one of the members here on the commission, and pardon me for calling you by your first name, but the tax credits, the alternative in the event that there's no funding from tax credits, what is, has there been discussions, at least with the proposed developer on that, and the path going forward for their financing?
Yes, Commissioner McCoy, we have talked through the concept of, and I believe I mentioned this before, the concept of a conditional ground lease. The development team is going to need to show site control in order to apply for those tax credits. Understanding that that's a competitive process, we are working through, again, a conditional ground lease, which gives the development team the opportunity to apply for those tax credits. And in the event that those tax credits cannot be secured, we would have to come up with another option, but it would essentially void the ground lease. And we're working through whether that's a one bite at the apple or a two bite at the apple, but that's part of the negotiations and the eventual business terms we hope to present in June.
Okay.
We're working through that.
So, I guess in JLL's analysis of the capability to deliver a development project. Did you guys have a cursory view of the previous consultants' report?
We did.
Okay. Do you care to offer any perspective on that?
What I would say is that upon review of both financial information provided by the master development entities along with their development partners, we do believe there is capacity to deliver the project that you saw presented today.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if that was what I asked.
So are you asking for an opinion of the report?
Of the previous report.
I would be honest with you, Commissioner, it's been a while since I've looked at it.
But
so I couldn't give you an honest answer without rereading it. But yes, we looked at it. We didn't agree with everything that was in that report. We submitted our report.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. So you obviously didn't come to the same, I guess.
We obviously didn't come to the same conclusion.
Correct.
Right? I mean, you saw the result of our report in December.
Right.
Our report in December laid out optionality to the board as well, and you know, the option that I think we all decided to move forward with was continuing negotiations, but in an effort to strengthen the proposal by the selected team.
And just so I'm clear, so these financials that have been, at least asked by a member of the public as well as the board, has there been any reason why we or publicly that should not have been provided to the members of the public? Because there's a suggestion, even, I'm sad to say the Post kind of even alluded to the fact that there was issues with the financials, but that's not your opinion, right?
I cannot speak to the specific procurement guidelines that the CRA follows in terms of making financial information available. I would have to.
Right, but was there any specific, like, proprietary reason why they would not want that available that you know of?
I can't speak to the procurement process.
Okay, that's it I have.
Madam Chair, if I may, and the CRA attorney can opine, there is situations whereby financial disclosure of financial information has an exemption to Florida state statutes regarding public records requests, and I believe the developers did exercise that exemption as providing their financial data. So they provided their data exclusively to our consultants. Our consultants reviewed it and then provided us with a recommendation. So no one on staff, not even the attorney, to my knowledge, has seen that information. It's been provided exclusively to the development team.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Were you finished?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if there were financial, information that was provided. I think that as a board, the people who have to make the decision about moving forward should at least have access to know what's happening, who is the money there to do the project. How can I make a decision and not know that? It's just ludicrous to think that we can sit up here and make decisions and don't know if the master developer is capable of doing it, because the master developer or the developers that we have here are the ones that we have to know that has the money in case one element or one developer falls out. They have to guarantee this project. We don't know that. We don't know if they can guarantee this project. I have not been privy to it. This consultant says he's not been privy to it in a sense that he was not charged with that. That was not his charge. And he said at the last meeting that we had that he was not asked to do that. So now I'm sitting here, you asking me to make a decision in regards to the master developer and to have this plan where we're talking about guaranteeing, and they're only guaranteeing certain parts of it. They pick and choose what they wanted to do. And I thought a master developer was supposed to take care of the whole project. But that's not happening here. So I cannot in good conscience make a decision when I don't have the information that I need to be able to do it. It's just that simple.
Madam Chair?
I'm not finished.
Go ahead.
And also, too, when it comes to the milestones, and I said before that this agreement is woefully inadequate in terms of the milestones they're so flexible that, we can go 3 years and not get anything done and still be within the confines of the contract. So it's, this situation with this particular proposal would have been easily put back out to bid, and the people who wanted to bid on it could have, and we could have been way further than we are now. And please let me be clear on one thing. I am not opposed to development at the marina. In fact, I am wholeheartedly invested in having this development at the marina. But this is not a good deal for the city. It is not. And you have a board that has not don't even know if the people have the money. So that is something that I cannot make a decision in good conscience with. And in fact, these terms of this agreement, everything that has been presented to us, we have this thing talking about Seaquest or SeaWorld, and these people have been, there's 3 articles on them violating state and federal animal welfare violations, including hazardous conditions for the staff. The city of Fort Lauderdale pulled out of the deal with them. So it's not impressive. I mean, we have to have anchor stores here. We have to have, of course, local, but we have to have nationally recognized brands. And the way this is, where the developer is picking and choosing which part they want to do and not guaranteeing any of it, is a problem that I have, and I cannot, in good conscience, move forward with this. Thank you.
Councilman Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Evans, just for clarity's sake, did you say that the consultants were the ones that saw the financials?
Madam Chair, if I may?
Go ahead.
Yes, the financial data with regards to their ability to facilitate the development project that was previously before you, as well as the revised proposal, has been provided to the consultants, JLL.
Okay, so I was just confused because I didn't understand what my colleague was saying in regards to the financials, because this firm seems to have reviewed the financials, given the recommendation, and the recommendation is that you're moving forward with this project. So it was just kind of contrary to what my colleague was saying. I wanted there to be clarity amongst the board and the residents that we did the proper steps by hiring this consulting firm, by having them review the financials, and by having them make a determination and a recommendation, working with our staff. And this is also staff's recommendation, so understanding that you may not be against development, but opposed to a recommendation of our consultant who we hired, of the staff who's worked on this tirelessly, and a beautiful project, including Seaquest, which is a world-renowned national destination location that I've been to in multiple locations. So I'm not really understanding, but at the same time, I'm in support, and I would like for us to kind of move forward unless my colleagues have additional questions.
Madam Chair, just one more thing. I just wanted to say that the developer at the last meeting that we had with this, the consulting company, the one that we have right here before us, said at the last meeting that they were not charged with financials. Am I right or wrong with that, Mr. Evans? Scott Evans.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Go ahead.
I believe at that particular juncture of where we were in the review of the solicitation, they weren't tasked with that. And then the board provided additional explicit clarity, and those were items that we worked with our consultants to ensure and receive from both the development teams. And they have received those documents.
Thank you for that, but the board has not.
All right. Anyone else? Questions or comments?
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Just a couple of points of clarity with regards to the, obviously we spoke about the financial data, and we can't release the data that it's unlawful for us to release. That information is protected, and they did cite the specific sections of the statute that protects that information, and so that information went exclusively to our consultants. It is not common in development. It is not uncommon in development agreements that large corporations and entities provide that type of financial data with the understanding of the exemption law. That's why it is provided in statute. Also, with respect to the exclusive negotiation agreement, this is an agreement that facilitates subsequent conversations and discussions about the deal-making process. And so it is not a situation by virtue of this agreement that we commit to this is what's going to happen right here, right now. This makes us get to the nuances of the deal to provide you the financial data to know what the risks are, what the asks are, what the costs will be, so the board can make an informed public policy decision. And so that's what this agreement facilitates. It consummates the relationship between the developers and the CRA to work together in good faith to facilitate what is provided for in the solicitation document. With regards to the competitive solicitation process, we've had our attorney take a look at the competitive solicitation process, and there was a lot of flexibility that was provided for in the solicitation document that allows for the developer to change the proposal and elements associated with the proposal. And so even though conceivably they came in with a vision, they have the flexibility in the solicitation document to make the changes, and it's not something that would constitute a solicitation going back out to the streets, and that was provided by the review of the attorneys. And one of the things that I do want to provide some additional clarity throughout the entire discussion with the developers, and I think Mr. Brown has been very explicit as it relates to the relationship that they are co-developers, that APD, TESRA, and their roles and responsibility have been pretty distinct. And even in the conversations that we've had with the development team for the last 120 days, Mr. Brown has spoken specifically to the element that he is working on, elements that he's working on, and Mr. Von Irons and his team have been speaking specifically. Now, we're all on the same call because obviously there's some components that touch one another, specifically parking and how do we allow for people to safely traverse the property and the synergy we're looking to create. But it has been explicit in the conversations and discussions that they are co-developers. They're working together on the same plots of land, but they are going to pursue separate and distinct items. But I do want to provide for an opportunity for the attorney to provide any additional comments or remarks about the negotiation agreements, and then even about the exceptions to the statute that were provided. Attorney Smith.
Yes, the manager is correct in most of these type of negotiations, most of these type of deals, that state statute exempts their financials from being turned over to the public and the commission. And most commissions did what we did, hire an outside consultant who reviews the information, and they give an opinion based on the information. I think that's what was done in here. As to this agreement, I think I don't want this confused us with a developmental agreement. This is setting up milestones for us to get to a development agreement, land lease, and all those other things. Trust me, there's going to be a lot more bigger agreements coming before you. This sets the milestones that we're trying to achieve to get to those more comprehensive agreements that you're going to see later.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, just let me say one thing. I just wanted to add that I'll still stand on the fact that we should have at least been briefed on the financial capabilities of the master developer, because if not, if they cannot guarantee this project, then who will? Us? So the thing about it is that, the legal ease in terms of you make a decision. You're up here to make a decision, but you don't have all the information. And that's it, Madam Chair.
So can I just say one thing? So is there something to provide some sort of comfort level for the commissioners in terms of, because I think what it is been this thing in the air where, we're gonna be stuck with this project. So what kind of assurances or comfort can we be given, or my colleagues could be given, in terms of just making sure that they're comfortable with what's happening, even though the finances can't be disclosed to us?
So, Madam Chair, I'll say a couple comments and then defer to our consultants. Okay. As part of this agreement and as part of some of the elements that will be coming before you, there would be a situation whereby performas, additional data, as it relates to what the developer anticipates on their investments, their return on the investments, the cost or the ask from the city or the CRA. And so you will have an opportunity to see those deal components and make a decision based on what are the nuances associated with the deal. As it relates to the overall financial capabilities of all the partners involved, I will defer to JLL, but realize that each of these components and these elements are going to come back to you in greater specificity that are going to speak to what is the deal going to look like, what are the terms going to be. Is it a remittance of TIF? Is it a ground lease? Is it shared revenue? Those types of things will be coming as part of the deal making process. So you will get more data, but the large question about their financial capabilities, I have to defer to the team from JLL.
And just to expand on that, we did analyze and look at the data provided by both the APD team as well as the TESREL team, in addition to the financial information provided by their development partners. And I think you saw in the presentation they've brought on the related group with billions of dollars in assets under management across the country. Urban is one of the titans in the retail development industry across the country. So we believe that the strength of the partnerships that have been brought together just further enhance the capability, as well as the letters of interest that we saw from some both debt and equity providers as part of their response. And just to echo Mr. Evans, as we get through the process and we come to business terms and we get to actual ground lease agreements, there will be further language in there that I think will protect the city as we move forward. So this is all part of the process. And just to speak to a comment that Commissioner Lanier had, part of this too, within the exclusive negotiation agreement, if we get to June 1st and we haven't made any progress, and we get to 6 months after that, we're at a point where, per the agreement, we can terminate. So I don't think we're in a position where we have to worry about spinning our wheels for another 3 years. Part of the purpose of the agreement was to both set forth these milestones and then provide opportunities for either party to terminate and for a fresh start. So that's why we've gone down this path, to, again, set the rules of engagement and work towards, in a collaborative manner, outcomes that I think will benefit the city in the long run. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And in terms of the milestones, that is certainly something that I wanted to make sure that we had because of the fact that this has been dragging on for so long. And so if we're either going to do it, if not, we could, go our own separate ways and move forward with someone else. So I certainly am glad to see this put into writing, and we either get going or start over, which I hope we don't have to. So, go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys have done a wonderful job, and I think you guys have done. We were kind of skeptical at first, but just bringing back the relationship we're related. They're doing a lot of work even in West Palm Beach. The Seaquest. I know Councilman Lawson say, even if it's not Seaquest, get us the best aquarium that we can have. And so you guys have addressed some of the questions, Mr. Evans, just because I was wondering at what point, and as you said, as we go along this agreement, is there anywhere in the agreement that when it gets to the part of the finances, if the city did not agree, could the city back out of the contract? And so I think that's the milestones that's put in, right? And so I think both parties have done a great job, and everything that we've asked, and I understand the financial part because I was just listening like, why couldn't we see the finances? But I understand that at some point in this process, we'll be able to look at the finances and make a decision whether or not we want to go forward with this project. But I think you guys have done a wonderful job of getting us to this point. Let's get it done. I heard Ms. Lawson say it's been 25 years. I think things have changed in the past 3 years. So we're excited about this project. Let's get it going. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
First of all, partners are not the master developer, and then also too in the contract there is no milestone for community engagement The residents of the city want to know what is happening with this project every step of the way, and there's nothing that talks about having any interaction with the public or the residents who live here, whose money it is anyway, to be able to do this project. So we want to make sure that that is a part of it. And also, I still stand by the fact that we should at least had a financial capability or capacity briefing before we even got here. And everything that you're trying to do after the agreement has been done, it just seemed like you're putting the cart before the horse. You're going to have all of these things done after you sign the exclusive agreement. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
It's just kind of, it's frustrating to continue to hear the process and not understanding just the basic concept of, I'll simplify it. If we're doing a real estate deal and you get an offer on the table, they submit a pre-approval letter to say they're going to move forward. We're going through the underwriting phase now, and we've put in all the clauses for reverter clauses, for making sure evidence of approval and finances is provided for all city and CRA commitments. So, and legal just said that they're not allowed to disclose the financials until after we have an exclusive agreement and we get to the terms of the discussion. So I'm confused as to Councilwoman Lanier's constant disdain for and complete disagreement to what our legal, our city manager, our developers, and consulting team has provided. But, I mean, again, we don't have to always agree or support, but we're just not going to blatantly, completely ignore what staff and what our recommendations are from every organization that's come to the table. So, again, we can all agree to disagree, but I'm just not going to allow for constant belaborment and belittlement of organizations that have done their job that we've hired. So essentially, thank you for what you've done, and I'm in support and in agreement with the work that's been done to this point, and hopefully we can get it even further, because we provided a safeguard for the city and reverter clauses for the community to make sure we've protected our residents, and we're not going to allow for any deals or agreements not to be done properly. So thank you for the work, and I want to apologize if there was any disdain placed in the way of the progress that you're bringing to our community. We just are slated to protect it, and that's why we're all so adamant about it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, since I think everyone has pretty much stated their points, then I think we're ready to call the question. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Battelle?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
No.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1 with Chair Pro Tem Lanier dissenting.
All right, thank you so much. Look forward to our next step. All right, I think we'll go to public comment. Hold on, let me.
We have.
Hold on 1 minute, please. Public comments shall begin at 7:30 p.m. unless there is no further business of the board, which in that event it shall begin sooner. If an item is being considered at 7:30, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Please be reminded that the Riviera Beach CRA is committed to civility and decorum by its officials, employees, and members of the public who attend this meeting. The board has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings. Madam Clerk?
We have 3 public comment cards for non-agenda items. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed. The first one is Delcia Brooks Hamilton.
And just call the 3 at a time so everybody knows, so they could be prepared to come on up.
Okay, followed by Bonnie Larson and then Margaret Shepard.
Thank you.
Good evening again. My name is Delcia Brooks Hamilton, CEO of Pangea Grill. Well, it's been a long 8 years, and finally there's something that's going to get done. And I am really excited today to see that we have come to a decision. And I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Von Irons with putting Pangea Grill on the marina, and also with Tony Brown. And again, I just want to make sure that everything that was said here tonight is going to be enforced. So I want to thank everyone, and I'm excited again to move forward.
Thank you. Margaret Shepard? Yeah, just repeat the names again, please.
Margaret Shepherd, Riviera Beach. To Mr. Steve White, good to see you. Haven't seen my friend in a long time. And you got a good guy on your team, Mr. Brown. And I tell you one thing about him, he would tell you the truth. He would tell you the truth. Steve is a marvelous young man. Thank you for being here, Steve White. And to all of you, thank you again, Mr. Evans, to all of you for the wonderful vote. I am indeed happy that we're moving forward. It's sad that we have to go outside the city to spend our money, but I think something's going to be done. Dr. Botel, before I forget, thank you for the Ezra State kickoff. I enjoyed JB fixing up the apartments, and to Miss Erica Davis, Mary Bram. I was on that team, but I got sick. But anyway, a fabulous job, and also Heron Estates, got your foot in the door there. And so we appreciate you. We know you only weigh 100 pounds, but you got some big feet.
In my dream.
And we appreciate you. And once again, Mr. Evans, my time is running out. I didn't mean to impose that you say anything about what I said about Nehemiah Spence. It's just something someone said to me, and it stuck in my head, and I just started talking about it. But I want to say, I didn't know he was here, but he is one marvelous black man. There's certain people I look up to. He characterized the gentleman to take care of us. He makes sure we get to our cars, get our bags. He made the ambassadors what they are. And without him, when I go out sometimes, especially on the island, I kind of look for the guys, and there they are. Without him setting the stage of how they work, and even coming here to the arena. I was just looking how he opened the door when we had the dance, and they just opened up the doors. Make sure who wouldn't want a set of people like that? So I thank him for being here tonight. I haven't seen him since January, but I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I sit as the president of the Black Tea Party, and they just want to send their love and respect to him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bonnie Larson.
I had written down, Bonnie Larson, I had written down some comments, but now after this last discussion, I have more things about the situation at the marina. Here's a point. If they're going to build something, they want a ground lease, as I know it, on 2 different parcels. If we give a ground lease for 50 to 100 years, and let's say that it's all based on getting that tax credit money. I remember this tax credit from years ago, and we had to submit money in order for them to apply for it. And this happened here again just recently. It was on the agenda that they wanted money from us to apply for something. When we got to the meeting, that item had been removed. It wasn't on there any longer, that they wanted money from us. And that's a bad sign. If they want money from you up front, what's going to happen later? So Mr. Tony Brown was the guru of tax credits, he said. He helped develop it and whatever. So we applied for things with tax credits. We didn't always get them. So what's going to happen if, in order to get those tax credits, they want the ground lease for 50 to 100 years? Okay, let's say we don't get the tax credits. Now they have control of several of our properties for 50 to 100 years, and we have no say about it if we've given them a lease on it. We've got different partners now in the group, too. Mr. Von Irons was competing against Tony Brown when this first started. Now, suddenly they're partners. There's a lot of partners here going on. I looked up that APDS today, and I didn't see where they were registered in Florida. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see it. I looked it up to find out who those people were. So you have one consultant who says this is the worst plan he's ever seen in his life, and another consulting group who really didn't comment on it or just said you didn't have to give them to you. So you've got one saying it's terrible and one saying, possibly it can work. I don't even know what they said. They didn't quite answer the question as I would have thought they would. Parking garage, the number of the parking garage has gone up, it's gone down. Also, they want it down by the port. They want it down by the port. Our event center is at the other end of the property. So why would we put the parking garage, number one, on waterfront property? That doesn't make sense. And you can have a little shuttle bus or something, put it on another area. Why would you have the parking garage at the south end where your event center is at the north end? Also, now they're talking about sort of permanently renting out space in the event center. Then why did we need an event center if we want to rent it out to other people? Has that second floor ever been finished? I don't know. I haven't been up there lately, but it wasn't finished last time I was up there. So why did we even need an event center if now we're talking about we're going to lease it out? Yeah, my time is up. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. All right, that's it, right?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Evans, do you have any answers for any questions?
There's a lot of questions.
No. I hope you were taking notes over there.
So I'll try to unpack some of those as best I possibly can. So with regards to the event center space, it's contemplating the upstairs area as well as the area that faces the water side. There is space that's available for a build out there, and the restaurant pads, and then obviously there's the parking lot, the old Yachtsman property, and the like would be where the commercial activities would be housed. Related to the tax credit program, the board is aware, as well as the community, that we did facilitate a tax credit application and program that received the #1 application in Palm Beach County with Berkeley Landing. And the commitment, I believe, was $675,000 to facilitate the gap associated with their particular project. It's a very common practice, especially if you're looking at workforce and affordable housing. In order to go through the process, like I said, it's a very competitive process. There would have to be a situation whereby there would have to be an agreement with respect to the ground lease, but however, we would put in the appropriate language that in the event that they're not successful in the application process after 2 goes, then there's a situation whereby the property can come back, or there can be another development that is looked to be constructed on that particular site, and maybe there's another market rate tower. So we would put in the appropriate stipulations in there to ensure that the city is protected. There's some other entities in South Florida that just experienced that not too long ago, and certainly we'd learn from those situations, so we wouldn't have the same situation with regards to our agreement. With respect to the partners, a lot of the partners were involved in the original proposal. Actually, the market rate component of Related is what came to this particular second phase, I would call it, to bring the market rate towers. And so Related was always part of the agreement from the original submission. They were one of the developers that came involved. And with respect to the facility and the use of the facility, obviously there were some discussions today about highest and best use and what can be utilized to look at this particular facility holistically, and that's going to be part of the analysis that we will do. So there's a lot of work that will happen as a result of this agreement, but then it's an agreement to agree to move through these different steps so the project doesn't sit there and stall. And so it's our desire to move forward and bring all those decision points back to the board so they can make a informed public policy decision. That concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you so much. Discussion by Executive Director?
None.
Okay. Discussion by General Counsel?
None, Madam Chair.
Statements by the Commission, starting with Dr. Wiltel.
Just very briefly, the mayor and I were pleased to attend the Palm Beach North Chamber 2022 Valor and Community Service Awards, and it was exciting to see one of our own being recognized, and that was the young man who won the Valor Award, which is awarded to first responders who demonstrate exceptional courage above and beyond the call of duty, regardless of personal safety, in order to save another person's life or protect them from harm. And that was given to Officer Breland Ivory. of the Riviera Beach Police Department who helped apprehend a violent gunman on I-95 in Martin County. I think we've recognized him at the council before, but it was nice to see the...
And he's right here at the end down here.
I'm sorry?
He's right down there.
Oh, I
Yes.
Yeah, it was nice to see someone recognized for valor from our police department. But that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Chair Pro Tem.
Yes, I attended the TPA meeting on April 21st. They had a serious Brightline update. I'm having a one-on-one with the representative from Brightline, but there's a lot of things happening. They're laying additional tracks, but I'll bring you up to date at our next meeting. This past Saturday, the ladies of Phi Beta invited me to participate in a COVID-19 seminar, and also I attended the groundbreaking for the Cube Realty Brokerage. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, Mr. Evans. I got multiple phone calls about events being canceled and terminated for holidays. Could you give us a quick update on what the direction is for events, whether it's city or organizers that are coming to the city?
Yes, Madam Chair. We have provided direction to staff that any events that were previously scheduled on nationally recognized as well as city recognized holidays, that those events, we continue to honor those for this year, but next year we're asking that those events do not conflict with any nationally recognized holiday or holiday weekends. The reason being is we have a significant manpower issue when it comes to public safety, and the cost for those personnels when it comes to event is double time and a half. And so there is situations when there's holiday events occur that the city is actually subsidizing events when it is on those specific holidays and those nationally recognized holidays. So persons that did receive any notification from the city and CRA that had an item already booked, we will honor that for the remainder of the year. But if an item is not booked, if it is during and on a holiday or holiday weekend that is an observed holiday, then those events and venues we will not be permitting for those activities to happen unless it is a bona fide city event. So if the city has, a Christmas tree lighting on Christmas Eve, obviously, then that would be an event that would go on if that was an event that we had on the holiday. But having conversations with public safety, there were significant issues and concerns and costs associated with the change.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
And to that point, Mr. Evans, thank you for honoring all the events for this year. I guess my concern is if we can look a little deeper into finding a better solution for next year. Going to the boat show in West Palm and upcoming Sunfest, I know there's a lot of mutual aid that's available for public safety with PBSO in West Palm. So I don't want to just eliminate the activities from the community for next year, because social engagement is something that we don't have in our community. We don't have any opportunities. So if we have organizers that want to showcase our waterfront or our gyms or any of the space that we have available to come into the community, especially when we have families that travel, mostly especially during the holidays, I don't want to just eliminate that because of a manpower issue. I want to find other solutions and opportunities next year. The boat show, even though it doesn't fall on a holiday weekend, it's still the fact that there's opportunities and options where we could possibly pass some of those expenses and dollars over to the organizers, because there's nothing to do in Riviera Beach. So I don't want us just to eliminate the opportunity that, we've presented with certain events that have done very successfully with other organizers, because what organizers could possibly do is just in turn partner with the city to still bring it up if you're saying that it's a bona fide city event. Or I just want to make sure that we have clarity and understanding, but looking at every potential option before we just make that decision for next year to eliminate all planned events.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
We are going to be looking to bring back a modification to the cost associated with events, specifically to public safety, to speak on those particular events, because there is a situation whereby the cost that is being provided for, the cost that the organizers are paying, it is not consistent with the actual billable rate of the officers, and so there is significant cost. So we will look at some additional option, but one of the challenging parts are when you look to have a large-scale event and you have limited personnel, there is staffing issues because persons take off during the holiday, and in some cases, the detail hours are not enough for officers to voluntarily sign up. And then if we hold them over for mandatory overtime pursuant to their union contract, we have to give them a 10-day notice and the like. And so there's a lot of moving parts. We are looking at how we can make the situation better. But there certainly is ways to facilitate some events in the future. But we are looking to bring back some additional comments and conversations with the board related to special events and costs for special events and the like. But we did cure the issue that was expressed by some folks. I spoke with the mayor earlier today about that very matter.
And just a follow-up, thank you, Mr. Evans. And to that point, I want to possibly have this as a discussion item and some direction with the council so we can have some more clarity, whether it's a workshop item or discussion, because we can even look at possibly increasing the compensation and the pay for our officers. I know that we're subsidizing a lot of the pay for these events, but I think it's vital. Like I said, you have to go outside of Riviera Beach to obtain or to attend anything. Any type of social engagement, any family-oriented event. So finding a solution versus canceling it is my recommendation. And if our officers are not being fairly compensated for the overtime or the details, and that's why they're not being responsive, or if we're just limited with manpower, we have options and alternatives to look at, again, versus just canceling. Maybe looking at increasing the compensation so these officers can be paid at the rate comparable to what PBSO and West Palm are paying for overtime. Because I see my officers at these other events in other cities all the time working details and working overtime because they're paid at a higher rate. So, I mean, we can look at some solutions. Let's workshop it and see if we can get some discussion and have some details of how we can actually get this done for next year since we're honoring the events for this year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. And I just had a question. Earlier, before we came into the meeting, we did have the metal detector set up for us in the back here. It was unplugged, I believe, by Mr. McCoy. And so I just want Mr. Smith to kind of weigh in on that. Is that illegal for us to ask for our people coming through the back door to walk through the metal detector? Because it's about safety. You know, no one, I don't think anyone up here is against safety. And if we had issues at the front of the building a couple meetings ago, I don't want us to be put in a position where we're going to have problems back here on the back end of the door. So having that metal detector up there, is there something legally wrong with asking for all of us to go through that metal detector?
Madam Chair, I was asked that question at the beginning of the meeting. I have Attorney Williams and Pittman diligently researching that during this entire meeting. We can't give you an answer tonight. We're researching it, and we'll give you an answer tomorrow or Monday at the latest. It seems we have to look through your code and see how that, to answer that question, it would be irresponsible for me to try to answer it directly right now, but I will have you an answer before we meet again.
I appreciate that, because from my standpoint, I think it's necessary. We know in public meetings, if we're all concealed weapon carriers, we know we're not supposed to bring them into a building where there's a government meeting going on. And so if we already understand that as concealed weapon owners, there should be no problems with us coming through a metal detector. I don't know what the issue is. You know, I wish Mr. McCoy was still here, and I understood he had some concerns with it as well, and so I thought he was going to be here at the end to speak on it. But, you know, if it comes down to us needing to take a vote, I mean, we have to get past this, because just because one person doesn't want it, or if there's more, no one else has said anything. But I do know there's one person that has a problem with us walking through, one person that has a problem walking through the metal detector, from what I understand. But it should not be about one person, because at the end of the day, it's about public safety for all of us. And so I look forward to hearing what you find out in terms of your research, because I'm not going to put my life at risk sitting up here as a sitting duck. Because if one is going to bring theirs, I need to bring mine too. So we need to make sure that everything is above board, and that everybody is comfortable and know where the law stands on this. So I look forward to hearing it, and if you please could let us all know what that is about.
I want to say one more. I just wanted to tell the people about the great event at the Singer Island Gardens last weekend. It was wonderful. You should see those gardens. They're absolutely beautiful. And also, I want to make sure that people understood that I was not talking about this group negatively. I was talking about the process, and I thought that the financials, and I still think the financials should be a part of the agreement that we have with the individual. Thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn?
So move.